All right, I'm back, guys. Sorry for the long pause. I've been traveling here the last few months and doing a lot of stuff with family, but now I'm back. Got this sent to me by a subscriber like a week or so ago. It looks like a really cool video. I haven't seen it yet, but by the looks of it, it's about working remote, and this dude's doing pretty well in Mexico City. So let's jump into this and see what he's got going on. But before I even jump into this, I gotta say that Buddy has a pretty crispy edge, and I mean, when I was living in Costa Rica, I couldn't find a barber, so I had to kind of wolf it most of the time. But this dude's winning just on the fact that he was able to find a good barber in a Latin American country. But that's neither here nor there. Let's jump into this.
Mexico City is a great city for me because I really love global cities. The vibrancy, the culture, the people, the food, the warm weather. There's just so many things to love about it. I try to be very conscious about coming here not as a tourist. So when I came to Mexico City, I wanted to make sure that I was learning Spanish, that I was making local friends.
Unos igualitos, pero más chicos. Más chicos, no.
I can already tell you one thing, that when you're learning a new language, take it from me because I went to and lived in Costa Rica for a few months. It's not easy, but you get a sense of accomplishment and a vigor for waking up and interacting with people every day. I know a lot of times when you're living in the States, you kind of get tired of seeing the same old folks and talking about the same old junk. But when you live in another country, there's so much to learn, and it kind of excites you for getting out of bed. So I would recommend everybody taking some time to go overseas if you can.
Mexico is home for me for the foreseeable future. My name is Derek Morgan Jr. I'm 34 years old and live in Mexico City. I'm on track to make more than $350,000 a year in 2025. I'm a full-service trademark attorney, so that could be anything from a trademark search, trademark prosecution, trademark representation, litigation, office action support. It's A to Z for trademark services. Five years ago when I started, I was working by myself, working 17-hour days. Now my systems are a lot better. I have myself, my paralegal, and an AI assistant where everything is a lot more streamlined.
Man, hold on, man. So this dude just said he's making $350,000 a year, and he's doing all of that with just himself, a paralegal, and AI. I mean, if you don't get anything else out of this video, is you should understand that AI is changing everything. What probably would have took at least one or two other employees, he's able to completely automate and streamline with an AI agent. And it's only going to get better as time goes on. Think about where AI is right now and where it's going to be next year as they continue to iterate on what it's capable of. People already got agents going out and creating content, creating videos, handling their calendars, doing stuff on their accounts, being able to book flights, handle vacations. Things like that, things that normally you'd use a VA or another human for, people are already creating and using AI to do those types of tasks. Basically anything that can be done remotely. This is pretty incredible, man. This dude is definitely winning.
I've always loved traveling. I've been to 60 countries so far. One thing about travel is just I really love to explore new cultures, new food, new people, and traveling for me has just always been something that I've loved. Mexico is my favorite country by far of the 60 that I've been to, which is also why I decided to move here.
Well, I've been to Mexico a couple times, and Mexico is a beautiful country. I know it gets a bad rap with like cartels and stuff like that, but Mexico actually is a really cool country. As long as you can stay safe and keep your nose clean and not getting into stupid stuff. Mexico is a beautiful country. I have a few friends that actually live there, and they rave about it. But it all depends on where you're at and if you know the language.
There's no requirements for me to be in the States. Trademark law is federal law, so it doesn't matter where you're licensed. As long as you have a U.S. license with the state bar, you can practice anywhere. Mexico City is about half the price of Chicago. It is affordable, but it's not cheap. So my expenses for rent here, it's around $2,000. A similar apartment in Chicago would probably be around $4,000 to $5,000. I like to think of myself as a pretty frugal guy. I do like to splurge on food and eat out a lot. I think I spend around $1,500 to $2,000 a month eating out. However, outside of food, I try to keep a lot of my expenses low, but as a business owner, I am able to offset some of my costs.
By offsetting some of his costs, what he really means is writing off whatever he possibly can. So as a business owner, you can essentially make yourself an employee of the business, which you are, and then a lot of your normally would be personal expenses you can run through the business. So that's a pretty savvy thing to do, especially with him being overseas and not having many employees. So he's definitely doing the right thing. I'm not going to try to give any advice on how to do that and what expenses to run through the business, but you definitely can do that. Talk to your accountant or somebody about that.
Every month I try to put the $12,000 to my solo 401k, my backdoor Roth, or any retirement accounts that I might have, but I also put money into my brokerage account because I am trying to retire early and I will need access to that earlier on.
I'm not really sure how he's putting $12,000 a month in his 401k. He must be meaning like he's mixing, putting a little bit in the 401k, putting a little bit in the Roth and different retirement accounts. Because as I understand it, the 401k is like 20 grand a year right now. 21,000 I think is the max you can put into a 401k. I have to check in for 2025, but like it's something like that. So 12 grand a month. I mean, you wouldn't be able to do it. You max it out. But I mean, he probably meant something else.
So due to market uncertainty, I do invest in real estate because I don't like all of my investments to be tied to the US stock market. I did read The Richest Man in Babylon, and one of the main principles from that book is to pay yourself first. So I ensure that I am investing as much as possible early on because as a business owner, you're not sure how long your business will thrive. So I want to ensure that I do have investments to last me as long as possible. When I started investing, I was interested in cryptocurrency, but it's not something I try to invest in every month. I did get lucky and invested in Bitcoin, and now I have about $125,000 in cryptocurrency. So in law school, I focused on intellectual property, and the law firm that I was working for in Indianapolis, I was actually not doing any intellectual property work. However, since I was working on a contingency at the law firm and the court shut down due to COVID, I needed a way to make more money. At first, I initially was doing contract review and some trademark law. However, after maybe a few months on the platform, the trademark law really took off. So I was working.
Man, I'll just say Fiverr is a gold mine if you get into the right market. I mean, a lot of the stuff on there is saturated, and a lot of the stuff on there you can probably use AI to do those tasks. Like, I used to use Fiverr for logo designs and things like that. But, for law and for trademark law especially, you definitely want to have a human. I don't think anybody's trusting an AI, at least not yet, to try to litigate a trademark dispute. But if you have any type of skills that can be done remotely, people still use Fiverr. People still are in a mindset that they want to deal with a person. Everything isn't AI yet. They give it 3 to 5 years, then probably it will be as far as like remote type things. But if you have like a skill that you can do for folks like online, like contract review or some type of art or something like that, you definitely want to check out Fiverr and just start your little store on there, and people will find you. I've used Fiverr.
For myself on the side for about 5 months, and I want to say the first month I made about $5,000 just doing freelance services. So gradually, my income picked up from $5,000 that first month, and then around that 6th month it was around $10,000. And the whole time I'm thinking maybe this is sustainable. Maybe I can just do this instead of doing anything else, working for the law firm that I was at. And around the 1 year mark, I was fully self-employed. A lot of these prospective clients, they're first-time business owners, they're brand owners, they're entrepreneurs, they're creatives. They've never dealt with, a big fancy attorney who's going to be charging them hundreds of dollars to really just confuse them. I try to be as approachable as possible to meet my clients where they are and make this process as smooth as possible.
That's a really big deal. I mean, what he's talking about is being more approachable for business owners and people who are just getting into business. That's huge because there's so much crap out there. There's so many ways that a lot of times attorneys will try to confuse you with stuff so they can charge you more. And at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff is super simple, but they put it behind like a complicated, jargon or essentially like a paywall to get you to pay them a bunch of money for them to do some type of simple filing or something like that. Or half the stuff maybe you can even do yourself. But so that's really cool that this dude is like not trying to, kill people with a huge price and just doing it for a modest price to help, folks that are just starting out. That's really cool.
I think of money kind of as a tool. My goal isn't necessarily to just be rich or anything like that. My goal is just to have options. It's more so about having the option and the freedom to do what I want, with whom I want, when I want, and where I want, and doing very little of what I dislike. So I don't want to work all of my life, which is why I am very focused on financial independence and retiring early. Mexico City is a great city for me because I really love global cities. The vibrancy, the culture.
I can't let that pass by without saying something like fire financial independence and retire early. That's been like a movement for the last maybe like, I don't know, 7 years or so. I think probably the first time I heard about it. And it's really cool, man. Like, but you have people who, not just people that make 350K, but even folks that make like 60K or even less that are, pegged on to the fire movement essentially, to live as frugal as possible, for now, until they get to like 40, 45 or whatever, so they can retire extremely early. So whatever your living expenses or how you like to, live your life, your upkeep or whatever, like your house and food you like to eat or whatever, basically what they do is they take like a budget and they say, all right, well, this is how much it would cost me to live that way, for 30 years. And then they essentially, say, I'm going to save everything I possibly can now for the next 10 years or whatever the target retirement date is so that I'll have enough money to be able to live that way, the way I'm living now for 30 years after that. And it's, pretty neat. I mean, the amount of discipline you have to do that is pretty incredible, but like, there are folks that do it and I've seen a number of success stories. So, if you want to look into that, just like type in like fire economics or whatever like that in Google or fire personal finance in Google, and you'll find a bunch of like, resources and stuff on that.
The people, the food, the warm weather. There's just so many things to love about it. I certainly could live in Mexico City year round. The reason I don't is just because of rainy season, but Mexico is home for me for the foreseeable future.
All right, well, that's the video. I mean, really cool, little feature on CNBC. I think they know and understand that a lot of people are trying to live this kind of life, where they're not tied down to any one geographical area, where they can work remotely and do the things that they want to do, while still making a significant income. And I mean, that's the dream for for most people, or at least I was to say most millennials these days. A lot of people don't have kids or aren't necessarily married, or even if they are, man, their spouse might have the same plans. Like, hey, let's work, let's create value, but let's not be tied to any one location. I mean, that's this trend is going to disrupt a lot of real estate, I think, in certain markets, but it'll help a lot of real estate in warmer weather markets because you'll see, and you're already seeing like migration to like Florida and the Sun Belt states, Texas, California, maybe not California as much. I think California has a negative one, people moving, but like places like overseas, like Mexico or Costa Rica or Peru, places where it's fairly cheap to live, but it's beautiful weather and nice people. And if you can make, shoot, not even 350K, but you can make 100K remotely. you live in Mexico City or in Costa Rica, like I said, or Uruguay or something, you're going to be living pretty nice. It'll be like you're making double or triple that in the States. So I knew of a guy who moved out to the Philippines. He was making like 160 a year, and he ended up moving to the Philippines, and then he was literally living like a king. He was making 160 living in New York, and he basically was living like a regular dude. I mean, but he had a roommate, matter of fact. But moving to the Philippines, he was making 160. He had like a penthouse suite. So yeah, so like if you're listening to this, man, like really think about do you really want to be tied down to any geography? And you don't have to necessarily maybe start your own company, but maybe you can work for a company and just work remote. I know a lot of that's kind of going away. Some, with some companies want people to be in the office, but there's still a number of positions where you can negotiate to work remote. And so we'll talk more about this. I really enjoyed this video. It wasn't really market stuff, but just like lifestyle type things and personal finance stuff. So we'll do more videos like this. But shout out to the subscriber that sent this to me. And you guys be blessed.